We are here on Earth to lead our lives because our consciousness must be developed so that it gathers knowledge, gathers wisdom, builds up love, peace, freedom, and harmony. The human exists in the material life on Earth in order to learn, just as other humankinds do on other worlds in the entire universe.
A new study of NASA data says there are billions and billions of planets similar to Earth and the Milky Way alone.
I'm absolutely sure that we are not alone in this universe.
A group calling itself the Disclosure Project is in Washington this week, calling on Congress to hold public hearings on UFOs.
Is there really life on other planets?
What do members plan to do with their information? They hope Congress and President Bush take notice.
Before a crowd of believers and skeptics, with cameras rolling, members of a group calling itself the Disclosure Project stood up one by one to tell personal experiences involving what they say are UFOs.
A group gathering here in Washington to talk about their UFO sightings, but this apparently is no crackpot convention. Former high-level government and military officials are among those sharing what they've seen in the skies.
We want the United States government to stop perpetuating the myth that all UFOs can be explained away in down-to-earth and conventional terms. Instead, our country needs to reopen its official investigation that it shut down in 1969.
We had ground visual, ground radar, airborne visual, and airborne radar confirmation of some of these sightings.
UFO sightings reported right here in the nation's capital. There was a flurry of them back in July of 1952 when the Air Force investigated but was never able to solve or prove anything. Take a look at these headlines. Aerial, what's its buzz? D.C. again. Air Force after D.C. saucers, jets ready to chase lights, jets ordered to hunt down flying saucers. There was a lot of hype, a lot of excitement back in 1952.
People have been talking recently about some very strange lights in the sky that were caught on videotape. And see for yourself. This is the footage that's getting thousands of hits every day on YouTube. The person who claims to have shot the footage says it shows a triangle-shaped object moving at incredible speed in the skies over Dublin.
Leslie Kane, she's also the Director of Investigations for the Coalition for the Freedom of Information. Leslie, thanks so much for joining us. I want to ask you first, what are you trying to achieve with this book here?
Well, Alana, thanks for having me on. It's great to be with you. The main thing I'm trying to do is establish credibility for this subject, which is so misunderstood by the general public and by the culture at large. And the point is that I am bringing forward extremely high-level officials from around the world that have documented, as you said earlier, official events, officially documented events, where these physical objects are present. They show up on radar. They leave marks on the ground. There is a physical phenomenon in the sky.
A UFO in China's skies forced Zhoushan Airport to stop operations on July 7th. Outbound flights were grounded after the unidentified flying object was detected by a flight crew. The incident has captured the attention of Chinese media, and theories about the UFO's identity are burning up on the internet as well. They include everything from a hidden U.S. bomber to an elaborate man-made hoax. For now, the UFO continues to be a mystery.
We probably won't be seeing aliens en masse anytime soon, but the Vatican's chief astronomer does say that there could exist other forms of life outside Earth. And he says if they do exist, they are God's creatures.
8, 9, 10, 11, contando toda la cola. Ay.
It's time to find out what the truth really is that's out there. We ought to do it really because it's right. We ought to do it because the American people, quite frankly, can handle the truth. And we ought to do it because it's the law.
We have over 450 military and intelligence witnesses. They range from generals and brigadier generals to air traffic controllers and strategic air command personnel in the Air Force to civilian people in the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, to astronauts and cosmonauts.
He had one incident that he would pick to convince people like me that aliens have indeed made contact with Earth.
That's a tough question because, you know, it's the weight of the evidence, and it's like J. Allen Hynek, who is the Air Force Blue Book guy. He said, look, he says, it's an embarrassment of riches. We have so much material. We have so much information. But if you take for one case that we have in the Disclosure Project, and that's a man who was the senior guy at the FAA, and they were tracking this object over Alaska, and it was at one point in the sky, and in one sweep of the radar, it would be 40, 50 miles away, moving completely non-linearly, not like an airplane. And we have the radar tape, we have the pilot report, we have all the evidence from the airline and the government. And this whistleblower who came forward, John Callahan, he said, I'm one of the senior officials in the government that not only have the evidence, but was part of a cover-up to keep the American people ignorant about it.
Bueno, se יורד למטה. Whoa!
I think tonight would be lovely, but is that a UFO? Amazing. Holy shit. Oh, is that cool? You can almost hardly look at it.
Hello again, everybody. This is Berlin, Germany, March 2nd, 2010. Looking here at Grellerstraße, there's this bright object in the sky. Just caught my attention, and I'll try to focus in. So all kinds of motions now.
If you had been here 10 years ago and standing out here and looking up there at the lights and the view, you would have been astounded. You would have been amazed.
Governor Simonton is referring to what is now known as the Phoenix Lights, an object videotaped by many and seen by thousands over several nights in the Arizona sky in 1997.
Major sighting here.
It was described by witnesses as larger than a football field and silent.
And I suspect that unless the Defense Department proves us otherwise, that it was probably some form of an alien spacecraft.
What follows is a celestial phenomenon that is attracting attention worldwide. It concerns ongoing sightings of luminous star-like phenomenon, too large and bright to be confused with a known celestial body, while exhibiting changes in size, location, color, and magnitude, as well as duration. These attributes rule out the possibility of near-Earth objects, asteroids, comets, and supernovas as potential sources. Beginning in January 2009, sightings have been reported from Norway, Costa Rica, the United States, Ukraine, Japan, scores of countries to date. There are many newspaper and TV reports.
Edivaldo, noites de domingo e objeto voador não identificado chamou a atenção de moradores do conjunto universitário.
Cuando hay una luz muy grande, muy resplandeciente, que no es normal verla en el cielo.
Norwegian authorities are investigating strange lights seen in the Arctic sky. The spiraling white light was seen for several minutes Wednesday morning. Locals say the light appeared to be bigger than the moon. Thousands of Norwegians bombarded the Meteorological Institute to ask what that light could have possibly been. Some feared it could have been a meteor, others a black hole, and there are even those that thought it could be aliens.
A strange spiralling white light was spotted in the early morning sky over Sydney, with even sceptical witnesses wondering if it was a UFO. The unusual sight was recorded by hundreds of people from Victoria north to Queensland.
It appeared just before 6 o'clock this morning.
That's a UFO, I'm telling you.
A spiral in the sky around a bright light.
I mean, what in the hell was it?
Malcolm Richardson saw it move from west to east, disappearing into the sunrise.
It was actually rotating and throwing off a vapour, glowing vapour, in a spiral that was getting bigger.
He was not alone. Early morning surfers, farmers, truckies grabbed their phone cameras, still cameras, web cameras.
It's just the most astounding thing. I'm looking at the window now trying to see if it's come back or not.
From central Queensland to Melbourne, along the east coast, people shared a close encounter.
And this thing was moving at a rapid rate.
I thought, gee, that's so unusual.
I was just dumbfounded.
The Bureau of Meteorology confirmed it wasn't a weather phenomenon. Air traffic control say they didn't pick their radar, and that looks 14 kilometres into the sky. And the radio telescopes near Canberra confirmed that it wasn't in deep space, so that leaves Earth's orbit.
I'm convinced after studies since 1958 that the evidence is overwhelming that planet Earth is being visited by intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft.
Even though there's clearly no evidence, I want to emphasize this, that these extraterrestrials are now it's clear to me that what's going on is that they're very concerned that at the time that humanity reached the ability to go into space, early space exploration, 50s, we also had already developed weapons of mass destruction and thermonuclear and hydrogen bombs and stuff. And that the coincidence of that, the coming together of those two things, put a big red flag over Earth. And so if you look at the databases from the 50s, 60s, 70s on forward, not only in the United States, but in Great Britain, in the Soviet Union, in China, that wherever we had space, aerospace, and nuclear facilities, there were a lot of these so-called UFOs being seen.
There were documents that I have seen that refer to the Roosevelt having several instances of UFO flyovers, and particularly after they took on board nuclear weapons.
Now, they are said to be able to cross galaxies, but people who believe they're out there want to know why aliens want to visit Earth. A group of former U.S. servicemen is convinced extraterrestrials are interfering with nuclear weapons, as RT's Cedric Moon explains.
Our missiles began going into what's called a no-go condition or unlaunchable. Essentially, they were disabled.
Detailed in this report, full of court-sanctioned sworn affidavits.
The witnesses have described these craft as disc-shaped or cylindrical-shaped or spherical.
These are men who might know what may have gone on. They're former Air Force missile launch officers, missile base officers, who say UFO spaceships, flying saucers, make nuclear weapon systems go haywire.
Clear. 7, go ahead.
I'll tell you at 10 o'clock high.
This is Houston. Say again, 7.
I'll tell you at 10 o'clock high.
An object which is at the same place all the time but appears to be tumbling. Well, we've had it ever since yesterday. It just seems to be tagging along with us.
What I tell people is that the reason it's hidden in plain sight is that the establishment doesn't want people to know, not so much that there's life out in the universe. There's 2/3 of the public believes that there's intelligent life somewhere out there. Over half believe we've been visited, all right? And this is consistent in polls. It's the technology. How do you put something like that up in the sky and move it, no sound, completely quiet? You're not dealing with fossil fuels. You're not dealing with conventional rockets. You're dealing with an entirely new area of physics, which if it was disclosed would mean the end of big oil, the end of the petrodollar, the end of public utilities as we know it. It would be an entirely new energy paradigm. And so the macroeconomic power behind the secrecy is what no one's been looking at. And this is what the Minister of Defense of Canada and I did a press conference on a few years ago, Paul Hellyer, and I did a press conference about this, that it's the energy and technology part of this story that has led to the extreme secrecy and also the extreme ridicule.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
Above the skies of Northeast and East El Paso tonight, a sight that was a little more than stunning. This is what one of our photographers, Ram Moreno, caught on video. One solitary light that appears to be falling in the sky. But that light suddenly breaks apart into 2, then 3 separate lights. Those lights then just freeze in the air and begin to hover. Eventually, a 4th light can be seen. Then the lights appear to be hovering and then moving in a strange pattern. Then they all disappear. We received a lot of phone calls into our newsroom tonight from people in the northeast part of town and on the east side, all of them wanting to know what was going on. And the descriptions from everyone calling basically the same. One caller thought a plane was falling. Another thought it was a meteorite. Others, though, said it looked like a UFO. Now, you want to get really creepy? Check this video out. Just 2 days ago, in the sky above Manhattan, people froze on the street there as they saw these 3 lights hovering in the middle of the day. And check this out. The 3 lights are close to each other, then spread out into this triangle pattern. Now, look at the patterns side by side. This from Manhattan and the other tonight in El Paso. I gotta tell you, they do look eerily similar.